and we'll get underway. All right, so what I've set up for you is just the core units out of this diploma of training and assessment. We're
Yes.
going to look at two sides. The what we're looking at the moment is the RTO side, and I'll show you how I've put the course together, and then we'll look at various features within it, and then I'll enroll a student, and we'll go and have a quick look at what the student sees and the interaction between the RTO and the student. So everything starts. So when you have a initial Skillsbook account as an RTO, you basically only have students and courses are the main area, and the owner of the site has an administration area to add assessors, group assessors into different areas, and all of that sort of stuff, as well as reporting function, whereas an assessor would just see their students and their courses. So I've gone through a course builder process, which is like a wizard type process to build this course. So we'll just circumvent that, and I will go straight in to edit the course. Everything to do with students or courses or training plans are all accessible under an actions type item, where you choose what you want to do and click go. So in this case, we're going to go in and edit the course and have a look at it. So first up, we give it a name. That's pretty straightforward. And then there are some. Then effectively we configure what it is we want to do with that course. So starting from the training and assessment strategy, we've because I chose training and RPL, most of this is automatically configured, but we have sitting behind it some quizzes. There's a self-assessment quiz as well as some knowledge questions. We're asking for specific items of evidence. We've also switched on task logging, and we're saying that once the student has done a self-assessment, the candidate will review it, and we're going to ignore the packaging rules. We can put all sorts of different rules on how many items we want a student to be restricted for RPL, but in this case we're going to ignore that. Simply for demo purposes, it'll automatically render a whole pile of hard copy sort of training books, from record evaluation packs to a training plan, so on and so forth. So I've just switched them on. All of these are off, but we can block units up around time frames. We can get the student to negotiate a training plan online before they even start. We can say if this is an RPL, we can say it's only available for X number of days from when they start. We can put the course into different groups, where we will publish the course, and publish the course right now. Why not? And we can do some integrations with some existing systems, or have the student able to enroll straight off your website, for example. Okay, so all of that bit takes a little bit of practice, but it's really just switching on and off the bits that we need for the course, and we can go back and forth and amend that as we go. So because I've already, yep, sorry, Michelle.
Just a question with regard to the integration with the student management systems. Which ones does it integrate with? Does it integrate with VetTrack?
No, it doesn't. Well, yes, it does. We can integrate with VetTrack, but VetTrack haven't done the work on their side.
Okay. Yep.
So we would have to have a conversation with VetTrack to get them off their bums. They've done the preparatory work. They just haven't actually done the physical work.
Yep.
Which, for their own reasons, they got bought out in the middle of the work. So, so we've chosen a qualification. This qualification isn't on your scope. So normally you'd have your scope built in, but I've got this looking at everything. So we could do the qualification, or if there's a new qualification coming on that you want to build a course, you can choose it not on your scope, and when it's on your scope, you can enrol students into it, but you can't until it's on your scope. If in this case we're making it up. So next page, obviously this totally depends on which qualification you've chosen, but here are all the units in the course, and we can import units from outside of the course, do all of the normal things you'd be able to do to pull together a training plan. I've just chosen the five cores, and you can see this little traffic light type validator across the top, so we know we don't have a compliant course to the packaging units because we've got a red box there. So basically I'm just going to override the totals, so it'll let me pass go, and click next. And here we have this is this bit 5, 6, and 7. These steps are where we're actually setting up the assessment items. So we have a list of evidence requirements, and then we have a list of tasks. Then we have a list of quizzes. They all work in a similar way. So there's lots of different ways, well, 4 different ways of doing this. We can upload a spreadsheet of evidence if you already have a list of evidence that you use. We can just hard type into here a particular item. So, a document showing you doing something, showing you blah 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 blah, and we can add that. We can go into an individual unit, drill down to a particular performance criteria, or in this case, a specific item of evidence. When we click that, if I go save, that item drops in there, and the mapping behind it is automatically saved. So we can go and overwrite that to make it a little bit more sense. Or we can do the really lazy option, which is my preferred option to start with, which is where we click auto evidence and say that we want to pull particular bits from the evidence statement and automatically populate and maintain that mapping. So what I've done is that last item where I've taken each item, critical aspect of evidence, and automatically populated it to the unit. And you can see we can then go and look at map. I think that's under the first one. Yeah, so that's actually mapped to that specific item, critical aspect of evidence. So that all happens automatically, but then I can go and edit and overwrite to keep Haskell happy and also keep it away from training package language where it doesn't make any sense. The other bits we can do in here, we can upload a sample file or a template file that we want the candidate to use by clicking that, and so the candidate's shown the file, and we can group the various items up together if we want. Obviously, we're just five units. It's not worth doing. So that's the evidence bit. I'm going to move on to the next one. So you're right with that?
Yes, I think that's marvellous.
Okay, so the next item is tasks. Now this makes kind of a lot of sense in more tradey type qualifications. It doesn't make a lot of sense in a diploma of training and assessment. Well, it doesn't. So what? In exactly the same way, I can upload a spreadsheet of workplace tasks. Now, the concept behind this, you will get, I know. These are tasks that you would undertake in the workplace that are then mapped back to unit detail rather than units themselves. So,
yes.
So, however, because we're just doing a trial demo, I've done the lazy option and used the units. But we can do exactly the same way. I can upload a CSV of tasks. I can pick a particular unit and say, look, I'm really looking for something around this performance criteria, and that'll populate it. Or I've just clicked this button and it's automatically populated each of the unit titles and the elements underneath them. So if we look underneath this one, so first up I can just clean it up a bit, design assessment tools for a cohort of students, for example.
Yeah.
And I can say actually only want you to do that twice. So I can update that. Come on. All right. I can go, and underneath each task there's a checklist for the student to tick off. So in a case of, say for example in automotive, undertake a 30,000 service that might relate to about 5 or 6 different units of competency, you might have underneath that change oil, sump plugs, you name it. So a whole list of different radiator, whole list of different items that are almost standard operating procedure type items. So these are obviously just the unit, the elements themselves, so I can go in and again edit those, but importantly all of the mapping behind it is still maintained irrespective of what I put into here. So these yeah, okay. So we can determine if we want the student to record how long they're doing a particular task or not, simply by switching on and off that, and we can loop a workplace supervisor into this, so that supervisor can simply note whether or not the task was actually undertaken by the student, but also provide us with other feedback that we can determine here. So by default, we ask them for overall performance, and that's from a beginner through to working at workplace standard, just a 4 rating scale. We could ask for such things as teamwork. We could do what all employers like to say around attitude. We could ask for a whole pile of those sort of employability type, or I suppose more validation from the workplace around the real performance of the student rather than training performance of the student. So we can build that sort of those softer skill responses into the supervisor's feedback. And so that's...
How do you justify in a competency-based model asking for evidence of attitude?
Well, simply because you actually, I know you're mixing kind of methodologies, if you like, but if you were to ask any employer whether or not an apprentice was coming up to speed, they would immediately have in their head their performance at work, how well they worked in a team, whether or not they had the right attitude, whether or not they turned up with a good work ethic. That's how they would see it, even though you are not necessarily making an assessment on that, but it is part of the holistic competency progress, in my view. Well, we can argue it out, but I think almost every employer would say, well, look, they've got to both do the task, but turn up with the right attitude, be switched on. I mean, Jo Ty would tell us all of this, wouldn't she? So
yes, of course.
So the sort of things that she could reasonably provide feedback on would be workplace behaviour and workplace performance. And in my view, asking an employer to get their heads around competency progression and performance criteria, etc., is not their job. They don't. It's not a valid approach to assessment, in my view. So,
yeah.
So I think triangulating it with stuff that makes a lot of sense to them is far more valid in terms of gathering summative evidence. Anyway, that's my thoughts. Okay, so we've configured a task-based approach to the assessment. So that's the second bit, and the third bit is the more classical underpinning knowledge tests, and also a self-assessment. So to create underpinning knowledge tests, we have, or to create the knowledge section, there's lots of different ways of doing this. Again, we can import a set of questions in CSV format. We can create an integration direct with a learning management system, so it feeds straight off that. We can author the questions directly within Skillsbook, and by creating a quiz and its underpinning questions, we can have true, false, multiple choice, multiple choice, word sequence type quizzes, scenario quizzes, essay quizzes, and there's one more which is like a heat map, where sort of spot the hazard on a particular picture, that sort of thing. So lots of different options, and the sixth option is to have a checklist in any sort of format. So satisfactory, not satisfactory, yes, no, you name it. And those questions, I've just set up a completely dummy questions behind here, just so you can see how it works. But we have one set that we're actually going to ask the student to respond to, and a second set that would actually be asked by the assessor in a conversation with the student. I've actually just for this purpose mapped them back to as a response for every unit, but in exactly the same way as we saw mapping evidence or mapping tasks. It works in exactly the same way. The final bit, or the penultimate bit, is to create a self-assessment question. That's done automatically, so I can only do it once. But what that is a quiz with 3 questions, and the 3 questions are: do you know, do you have, can you do, and that they are automatically generated out of the unit, out of the units in the course, and we'll have a look at those from the student side. But of course, we can go in and edit them and amend them once we have the core data set sitting there. The final bit is creates a connection between the self-assessment and the next layer down of questions. So by that I mean, if the candidate wants to apply for RPL for a unit and they say, yes, I can provide a document that shows me doing something, the next layer down after they're actually enrolled in the course is to say, well, upload it. So it's a connection between the two. We'll see that when we get there as a student. So that's the quiz bit. Normally you would have a much longer. You'd really have a set of questions for each unit or cluster of units. Really depends how you do it, and you probably have a set of questions, similar parallel questions for the assessor to ask as a competency conversation. But for the purposes of showing you this, I've kept it simple. So okay, so basically we're right at the end. I'm just going to just check. We'll control what's called control the student view, which controls what the student is going to see first, and as you can see, they're just going to see a self-assessment. But this is basically all of the assessment items sitting behind the course that can be switched on and off. It all happens automatically, but you can override what's seen at any point in time. So that's really just for me checking. And we're going to, okay, it's already published. Before I leave this area, we can look at the various mapping reports that sit behind here. Now, so if we let's just look at evidence first. Okay, so you can see if the unit that's mapped to and the evidence that's required for each one. We have a similar report for tasks, similar report for quizzes, and we can look at the entire course, and you can see we're pretty well full up and mapped. But we can look at the whole lot in Excel to see the reverse matrix of every single bit of unit detail and what's being asked for each one. So I'll just open that up. Okay. Cancel that. Sorry, just trying to update everything. It's just waking up.
Yeah.
Like they do, you know. Okay, so hopefully you can see that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have each item sitting in here, and you can see we've got for this particular what's this unit title, we've got a quiz and a task. As we drill down, you can see we have different bits of different assessment items for different units, and we can I know that everything's fairly full in this case, but we can filter through just to see what isn't mapped and go and fix that up so that we make sure that we're covering everything required. Okay, so that's the various mapping reports, and as I've said, as we go through, most of that's done dynamically by virtue of building the course through the course builder. So let's put a student into this, and let's have a quick look at what happens there. So okay, so I'm going to enroll the student. Okay, so I'm just going to I know I'm already in the system, so let's make it easy for ourselves. Don't have to fill out the rest because I'm already there. Okay, so I'm enrolled, and we go straight to my training plan. Just as you saw with courses, there's a whole pile of actions underneath the training plan. So obviously I can assign a different assessor, assign a supervisor. I can look at the various workbooks. Actually, I'll do that first, and we can see all of the various. You can see can go and edit the training plan to change it if halfway through the student wants to do something different, or add a unit or whatever it is. But this is how we access all of the content from the student. I'm just going to go quick look at the workbooks, not that they're particularly applicable, but just so you see what we're looking at. So if I just pull down this, for example, a generic training plan. Okay, so I've just had an email to say I've just been enrolled. So so you can see it's gone and dropped. Whoops. It's gone and dropped whatever content I have put in here, and the units and how we're going about it. There's I won't dwell on them too long, but as you can see, there's a big list of different types of workbooks, mostly used in the TAFE sector, where they don't believe students can go online, but they, work activity books, evidence books, so they're all just templates with the unit content automatically.
So
yeah.
This is one of the questions that I was kind of thinking about. All of the processes and systems that are built into this to develop the assessment and all of that really quite clever mapping that occurs there.
Yeah.
In terms of are there people using this to develop more traditional hard copy type assessments, as in can you develop it and then print it in some format? And this is, I think, the answer to it, that yes, you can. You could print the actual assessment documents and work through them with people that way.
No, absolutely. So that's what you're looking at here. So there's we can have a list of all of the questions, the list of the evidence. So the whole lot can basically go into hard copy to work on paper.
Mm.
Yeah, so you can have a combination, and we do have customers that have combinations of some online students and offline students, but obviously they're using the same kind of back end system to manage.
Mm.
Okay, so let's go back to a student. Okay, so there's a simply because we're dealing with students, there's a backdoor entry into the student's account. So obviously I get an email. You heard it sort of pinging in as soon as I enrolled myself, I get an email to say that TransTrain's enrolled you in a diploma of diploma of training and assessment. And I go log in and pick up my account. The other way, because we do have students that get lost or need a bit of a hand, so we can log in directly from the RTO account into the student, because we're going across platforms. It's just going to ask me for my password, because every interaction that happens in the system is logged and tracked. So I'm now in as the student. So as you can see, there's a whole pile of messages come back and forth. So this should say, yep, been enrolled in this training plan. And I've got, because this is my demo account, I've got 98 training plans sitting in here. So obviously we just need this first one. Okay, so this is normally where a student would start with a self-assessment. There is nowhere to go other than click the self-assessment button. Tells us all about what we're about to do, and I'll just click start now. Okay, so we have here are our five units, and underneath each unit we have by default no, but this is the do you know, do you have, can you do, and I've done no editing or configuration of these. This is just straight out 1 minute clicking that auto dynamically generate button. So I'll just read through those statements. Let's just say, yep, I do have evidence of the ability to develop assessment tools, and yes, I can do all of that. So I go unit by unit. You can see I've got saved on that. Let's just do one or two more, just so we've got some content to look at the next layer. Do I know about training packages? Yes, I know about training packages. Do I know about the AQTF? Yes, I do. Let's just go yes, yeah. Now I'm just on this one, I'm just going to say, can you do? I can't determine the parameters of the learning strategy, but I can develop. I'm just going to miss a couple out on purpose, okay? So,
yeah.
And I'm just going to do the last one. All right, there's a lot of knowledge behind undertaking a training needs analysis, I'm pleased to say. I don't know what DACM analysis is anyway. Do you? DACM analysis? Okay. All right, so that'll do. I've done 3 units. Okay, so I'm going to submit it. Now, once I've submitted it, it's effectively locked. I can't go back in and change it. But as the RTO, I can get the candidate to do it again. I can unlock it and send it back. But that's all the candidate does at this stage. I'm going to go back to the RTO.
So, David, a question at this stage: can that RPL assessment be generated in hard copy?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Nice.
Actually, yes, it can. Yeah, it can. Or yeah, I think it can, Michelle. I'm not sure that we've never had anyone done it hard copy. Either way, we can easy create it so it does. It's not a
It would mean though that the responses would have to be input in order to get to what your next
yeah,
stage is.
that's
Yeah.
exactly right. Yeah. So you can see under, so we're now back as the RTO, and everything is what's new. So an external email pings out to the assessor, and they can control how often that happens. There's underneath here, there's a whole pile of settings, to say I'm going to get notifications immediately, once a day, once a week, etc., etc. So, and obviously we can change the color of the screen and put all of that, put your logo in, all of that sort of stuff. So we have an RPL that's been sent through. Just hyperlinks through. Okay, so here we have self-assessment attempt number 1, and we're going to mark that. And here we have, let me just give us some real estate. Okay, so these are my responses unit by unit, and you can see hopefully you can see over on the left-hand side in red the chance of success. So it's automatically calculated how likely I am to go through on RPL, and basically what it's done. If I come down to the one that we clicked no on. So where is it? Sorry, it's
Up a bit,
yeah, up a bit. Okay, so
down.
down here. Okay, so
Yeah.
if I had no for everything in the can you do, it would give me a 0 score. I can't proceed. Okay, so
Yes.
and
Okay.
so if you simply can't do it, forget it. You're not going to get RPL. We're not going to let you do RPL. The highest you can get is 80%, and I'm not quite sure why that's showing 80% because we've got a couple of no's. I'll get someone to look at that. But basically, anywhere between 0 and 80% is how it calculates. And so where there's a high chance of success, I, as the assessor, might say, look, you probably may as well go ahead with that one. 69%. Okay, I can see you've got most of the knowledge. You've got some evidence, but there's maybe didn't understand these two questions. I'll let you continue on for RPL for that one. This one, no, zero chance. This one, no, and the final undertaker training needs analysis. Yep, I'll let you go ahead with that. So from the assessor's perspective, it's really looking at that as the first guide, and then determining whether or not it's worth allowing the candidate to proceed. I'd say if there's less than 50%, it's questionable whether it's worth the candidate going through. But there are different lines, and we even have one customer that's automatically approved and generated. So anything above 60% will allow the candidate to go through. But entirely your call as the assessor. And you probably forgotten by now, but right up the front, when we created the structure for the course, where I said we can ignore the packaging rules or have plus or minuses on the packaging rule, we can get the candidate to review their own self-assessment and determine if they want to proceed or not, or we can put the assessor as, so we can have a switch at that area. But anyway, that's getting into minutiae. So I'm saying the units we've selected approved, and we're going to allow them to proceed. They've satisfactorily completed the self-assessment. We've enrolled them, and again, that might happen automatically, and we've received payment. And you can see when I click receive payment, there's a button to activate them and allow them to go to the next step. Of course, we can unlock the self-assessment, get them to do it again. We can send them a comment, or we can make as an assessor, we can make a comment that sits within the system, and In this case, we're going to activate the student, and that's the student. So let's come back to that training plan, and let's go and look at it from the student's perspective again. So I'm going to go and log in as the student again. Okay, so it's now sent me a message to say I've been marked and activated, and now we have the three different layers of the subsequent assessments. So if we come to the evidence first, doesn't matter, they can all be done in whatever order is required. And you can see we only proceeded on 3 units, so we started with 5, we're now down to 3. Everything from a document perspective works as a library. So every time I put any document into my Skillsbook account, it populates a file library here, and when I want to use it for a particular item of evidence, I push it across, and then I can submit that. So I can put the same piece of documentary evidence to multiple items, but importantly, I'm the one I as the student am making that choice, rather than expecting the assessor to unpack a shoebox of all of my life's work and reallocate it. So if I pick up that, and okay, and I'm going to, if I just submit the various items. Again, this is it. What it does is create a copy, so I can still access mine, but the assessor sees only the version that's been sent through to me by the student. So I'll just submit that one, so we've got a couple of documents to look at. Okay, so that's that, and obviously uploading a new file is like, attaching something to an email. So I go and find it. Oh, I don't want to put something 24 megabytes. That's okay. So I give it a description, upload it. And you'll see it now. That now sits in my file library. That was the item I put forward.
Yeah.
What a surprise! A football logo. Okay, so
yeah.
Good context, huh? So that's the documentary evidence bit. So probably the most critical bit is that we're actually forcing the student to go forcing the student to load documents against specific evidence requirements, rather than giving us a bundle. Obviously, from an assessor's perspective, that culls out a lot of pain. Let's go to the task log now. So we had the 3 units. This is the one we edited, and you can see little dots here to say whether or not how many times we want we expect the student to log it. So I go in, I go log task. So I might say I've designed an assessment tool, and did that and that. Make some notes on it, or in the context of in sort of the transport world, if this was storage and warehousing, I've packed X number of pallets, or I've done so and so forth, and I can upload the job card, or take a photo of what I've done and upload it. So I submit that task, and so that's all grayed out. If I just do another one, let's spend 8 hours doing that. Okay, so we've got a total of 8 hours logged here, and you can see across the spread of the sort of work that I'm logging. Haven't actually developed an assessment tool in here, but I've done some other other items. So when you go across, say, a range of different items within a unit, you can start to see the spread of the type of work that's being done in the workplace without actually ever without actually having to observe it yourself. So we haven't looped an assessor in. Haven't put the supervisor into here, but the supervisor would get an email ping to say that I've just submitted these two items, and all the supervisor would be asked to say, just through a sort of a checkbox, would say yes, that he did actually do that work, and to provide feedback on those items that we put. So one was attitude, one was teamwork, and overall performance. And then once that happens, we get a nice little graph that pops up here to show how we're proceeding with our workplace component of what we're doing. So I'll go from there. Let's go to quizzes. Okay, so obviously I'm not being asked. This competency conversation doesn't come in at this stage. It's part of my quiz, but I, as the student, have nothing to do because that's going to be done for me. But when I look at a underpinning quiz, so this is there's nothing. This is just standard sort of learning management system stuff. So I just put, I've just done a very dummy true.
Yeah.
Okay, so I submit that, and okay, so that's me and my progress. Okay, so you can see I've still got a whole pile of tasks to do. There's still one item of evidence to do, and I've still got to have that conversation with my assessor. But I've submitted them all, but they're not yet satisfactorily completed. So the assessor hasn't marked them yet. So I'm ploughing away quite nicely. And we'll go back and look at it as the RTO. Okay, what's new? We should have a whole pile of things that have come in. Let me just go any one. Okay, so we've done the self-assessment. Here's a quiz that's come in. I'll mark that. So obviously with almost no content, it's hard to see what's going on, but let's just say that's okay, and it's completed. Let's go. We'll save. I'm going to come. Let's go straight from here to the evidence itself. Okay, so we've got two items here, and it tells us what we're supposed to be looking at. So here's the mark. That's the document I put up, which is a hyperlink to it, irrespective of the type of file that it is. Let's assume I've looked at that and that's satisfactory. And so if it wasn't satisfactory and I wanted to, again, I could make a comment back to the student. I could unlock that document to get them to add to it. But in this case, I'm just going to say, yep, we're all good. And I go to a task, and we can see we've got this two items that have come in here, and I'm just going to, for the sake of it, I'm going to say, okay, look, I'm pretty comfortable that they're progressing along nicely, so I'm just going to say okay to complete. Again, that's satisfactorily completed. Okay, so let's come look at that. Look at results to see where we're at. All right, so this is where everything sort of re-renders itself back into competency language where we have the unit, all of the assessment items that relate to that unit. And so we can see on this first one that there's a self-assessment that's been done, and we're okay with that. There's some evidence that's put in that was satisfactory. There's a task that's been done and completed, and the assessor completed it themselves. But there's some marking that's not been completed on the quizzes, and there are other items that aren't yet complete. Now we would let this proceed until the student had exhausted themselves. We'll click this little button up here that will go through everything and pull out a list of what's left or what hasn't been completed satisfactorily, and that then forms the focus of the competency conversation, which then picks up the competency conversation questions had I built them in properly. So at that point, then we come to the event miss outcome, of RPL granted or RPL not granted, which of course is done by the assessor, and that's the end of the RPL process, as well as lots of other little bits in the middle.
Yeah.
So I'll stop the recording so we keep that fairly